Hello, everybody. Mobbing for the win. So, came here to learn about how to start an angry mob. I hope no one, because I have no idea how to do that. So, who here has heard of pair programming? Okay, good. Wow. Okay, very good. Who has heard of mob programming? Okay, that's good. I hope I can teach you some more about mob programming today. So, a short introduction. I'm Sjoerd Houben. I've been a professional now for 6 years. 4 of which as a .NET developer. Sorry, I'm at the wrong conference. I'm a software engineer at Tomra Food Sorting. And this is my very first talk, so I'm very grateful to be here. And I hope I can teach you something today. So I'm going to teach you something about mobbing from the standpoint of a young professional in the sector. So what is mobbing exactly? So if you look at the Wikipedia definition, mobbing is a software development approach where the whole team works on the same thing at the same time in the same space at the same computer. So what does that actually mean? So what it means for us is more than 2 people at least looking at one screen with one keyboard, one mouse, and taking turns every so often. Now why is one screen, keyboard, and mouse important? It causes everybody to talk more. So one of the important things within the team, within the mob, is to be able to communicate with one another. Because you start talking about the problem, because you're not just getting a bug assigned to you, going to your computer and thinking, that's how we should do it. Now you go to the mob, you start talking with one another, and you start trying to fix it. And by talking about the problem, you'll eventually start talking about how you can actually solve it. And by talking that way, you will find your solution faster, because everybody has a different idea of how to do it. So within the mob, you have 2 roles. You have a driver, which is basically the person who's sitting behind the keyboard and is using the keyboard and mouse, doing whatever the navigator is telling them. The navigator is the person who does the talking. They're the people who are sitting next to the navigator, and they basically instruct the driver what to do. Why is taking turns very important? So taking turns is important, so the driver is not stuck. So people are not assigned driver for the rest of the year. So that the driver can go to the navigator role and the navigator can go to the driver role. The other interesting thing is that the code base is shared. So it's not just one person making his flavor of the code into a single file, for instance. Now you can have multiple people working on the same file, and by that way, the code you're creating is shared. It is something for everybody. The other aspect of taking turns is that everybody can do talking, and that everybody gets a say and an idea of how actually we're going to solve this. So what does mobbing bring actually? Mobbing brings a shared vision, not just of the feature you're trying to deliver or the bugs you're trying to fix. Now you get a vision of the entire product, because you can invite people that are not directly technical. You can have them sit in the mob and talk about how and what we're actually trying to do. So you get a shared solution as well, because all of us in the mob are looking to fix it in a fast manner. But you also get a better understanding, because you have people from different levels of the organization, different levels of knowledge. You have juniors, seniors, all in the mob, and by talking, you're able to get a better idea of what the junior knows, what the senior knows, and how they are actually able to uplift each other, because the junior knows something maybe that the senior doesn't know, and the senior has probably a lot of things to teach to the junior. The other aspect of mobbing is fast feedback, and fast feedback is very critical in these days in software development, because fast feedback makes us able to deliver value as soon as possible. And this ties into how you get the fast feedback. So for who is the mob? The mob is not just for technical people. There are technical people, of course, because we're software developers, and we are working on a code base. We're creating a product, we're creating a project. But non-technical people are also welcome, because they have valid input. Everybody is welcome that thinks they can add, everybody that thinks they can bring something to the conversation or bring something to the mob is welcome there. Because, for instance, the interaction between the different people in the mob is very important. You have people that are not technical, like the UX designer. You have a product owner. You have other stakeholders. They're all very welcome because they have inputs that you might not know, because they maybe had created the user story. They might have added the bug. they're very much welcome to deliver their input, because that way you can have the fast feedback. Because, for instance, what we have done is a team of 3 people mobbing on a certain feature. While we were reading the description, we were not really feeling what we should be doing with it. So what we actually did was, we started on something, then invited the UX designer to sit next to us. Basically, we took an A solution and a B solution and presented it. And by talking directly to the UX designer, we were able to get a C solution, which satisfied the UX designer, but also satisfied different stakeholders. Because of that very fast feedback you have, because the UX designer is just sitting there right next to you, and you can just ask them, hey, is this okay? Is this okay? Should we try this? And they can challenge you back, saying, for a user standpoint of view, this is not really great. Try this. That's a very powerful thing you have in a mob. The other aspect is a vertical squad. So if we look at the horizontal is the front end, then you have the middleware, then you have the lower level. So a vertical squad is basically someone from the front end, the middleware, and someone from lower level. What that helps with the mob is that everybody can complement each other. For instance, myself, I'm a front-end developer. I have extensive knowledge of how the front end actually works. The middleware person knows how to talk with the front end and the lower level. And the low level knows how to speak with the hardware machine, with the hardware. That way, you all have a better understanding, for instance, in my case, of how the entire machine works, because I know what the user sees. But by talking to lower level people, I know also how the machine completely works. Well, not completely, but from a high standpoint, I know how it works. The other very interesting fact about having vertical squad in a mob is that you are able to have fast end-to-end solutions. So for instance, in the morning, you see that you have a bug or a feature. You go to a room, dedicated room. You get a whiteboard. You start drawing, for instance, what the actual issue is. Or if it's a feature, you drop the API and the interfaces you're going to use. You invite product owners, UX designers, to see if what we're trying to do is actually what we're trying to do. And by actually challenging them, you get a better idea of what you're actually trying to do. So that way, after designing it, we all went back to our own desks, because the mob is not something you have to do. If the mob is not the right tool at that stage, you split off. So we split off, we did our own thing, but we came back afterwards. And what we did in the UI, we had a button, middleware had a layer to communicate with the lower level, and lower level sent something back. So at that stage, you have a very, very fast feedback, very fast end-to-end system. Because I click the button, it's going through the entire system and back to us. And that's powerful because you can bring it to the product owner, you can bring it to your stakeholders or the UX designers, and be like, hey, this is what we implemented. Is this actually what you wanted? Because we had the discussion this morning, is this actually what you wanted? And by that power, you can have the people challenge you, and in a very fastly manner, all together, try to fix it or change it, or spring off new ideas from one another. And that's again the very power of having fast feedback. So what worked for us? So smaller groups is better. So as soon as you have bigger groups, like 6 people, 7 people, 8 people, there's a lot of people. And a lot of people get very loud, very fast. So with 5 people, you have everybody concentrated and not on their phones, all focused on the same screen. The other interesting, obvious thing is that people need to want to join. You can't force people to be like, hey, we're mobbing now, come join us. What you can, of course, do is start a mob, and after an hour or something, invite them over to show them something interesting you've done. By having them there and starting the mob conversations up again, they might be interesting to, hey, this is interesting, maybe I join. That's another way of doing it. And the other important thing you should do is set up rules. Like I said earlier, like taking turns is important because everybody gets a say, everybody gets to try typing, everybody gets to talk. So setting up the rules of having 50 minutes, for instance, for a driver to change is a number. You can see whatever fits your role. You decide what the rules are, and you feel what your team is good at, with what time. And the other thing, it's important to have a hard limit, because as software developers, if our time is up and we see like, oh, we can do this little thing, and we can do this little thing, you're going to be stuck there as a driver for an hour. Because let's face it, once we're focused on something, we want to continue doing what we want to do. So as for us, we also had to pull out the USB sometimes on certain people, because they keep on wanting to do it, including myself. So why should you try to mob? Well, communication, and not just communication within your team, but also communication between different departments. Like, for instance, we create hardware at Tomra. So having people from different departments come in and sit there and be able to look at what we're doing is very useful. For instance, we can go to the machine itself and see like, hey, this feature is not working. UI can check, oh, we're sending the correct value, middleware checks, we're sending low-level says, we're doing the same thing. The hardware guy might say, yeah, but this is not correct, we need something else. And you can do that on the fly, changing the code and being able to show like, hey, we have something new, something better, something that works. And again, that's something very powerful you can have, because you can show that to other people, what you're doing in a very timely manner. The other thing is team building, because let's face it, if you're stuck in a room for an entire day with 5 other people, team spirits will either increase very fast or decrease very fast. So by being together for a long time, the spirit will increase, and you will start following a schedule, a mob schedule sometimes, because after an hour, most people will be like, hey, I need a coffee. So the entire mob goes get coffee. You start doing lunch together. It's very interesting to see the dynamics that happen if you're starting to mob. And like I said a lot of times before, it's the shared knowledge. Like, I can't emphasize enough how important the sharing of the knowledge of the entire system, but also the shared vision that you have on what we're actually going to deliver to the customer, or what actually are we creating. And the other important thing that you get from mobbing is the complementing each other. Because I'm a UI guy, I don't know a lot of hardware stuff. But because constantly talking with people from hardware or from people from lower level, you get a general good idea of how things are working, and going into a next feature or a next bug, you start understanding from, we saw this last time in the mob, maybe it's something similar. And this really helps you going on to future, where you might not be mobbing on something, for instance. So how should you try it? Well, try asking. Just ask your manager, hey, I saw this guy at a conference, or if you're watching on YouTube, hey, I saw this random guy on the internet, he suggested we should try it. If that doesn't work, try booking a meeting room for 2 hours, for instance, just a small slot, maybe an hour, and just try going at it. Because if people see a group of 5 developers all looking at the same screen, people raise eyebrows and be like, what are you doing? And you can start explaining them. And if you can start showing them what the effects of the mob is, how productive you are, your manager might go like, next time you have a feature, be like, hey, are you mobbing on this? Because this is an important thing, and I saw how it went last time. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Thank you.